problems faced Elizabeth I then? Well, the first one is about the succession, because when she came to the throne in 1558, she was already 25 years old. And obviously in those days, that is seen as getting quite old. If you're going to have a child, most people would have started having children before this. Now, she was really surprised that she actually managed to come to the throne, because a sister, Mary I, had a short reign before her, with only a 5-year reign. And before Mary I, Edward VI, which was a half-brother, he'd had a short reign of only 6 years, because he died when he was only 15 years old. So, unfortunately for Elizabeth I, the person who was in front of her, Mary I, was a strong Catholic. And a lot of people in England still wanted England to be of the Catholic faith. But obviously Elizabeth I was a Protestant because her mother Anne Boleyn had been a Protestant reformer, and Henry VIII had obviously, changed the country to Protestant in order to marry Anne Boleyn, which was Elizabeth's mother. Now, when the succession was obviously in doubt, which it would be because Elizabeth hadn't got married, Parliament became really, really worried, because they were concerned that if Elizabeth died without any heirs, whether it was a male or a female, there would be a massive, massive problem and England could fall into civil war. So succession was a real problem, and Parliament kept trying to pressure Elizabeth in the first few years of her reign to try and marry, because they wanted her to secure it with hopefully a male heir, and if not, certainly a female heir. And they wanted one that was obviously going to be able to be Protestant, to carry on the Protestant religion that Elizabeth was so fond of. So succession became a really, really big concern. And it was a bigger concern that actually only 4 years into her reign, she nearly died from smallpox. And smallpox was a huge killer in those days. And it suddenly became apparent that although Elizabeth was only in her 20s, what would happen if she died? Well, yes, the end of the Tudor line, but also there wouldn't be anybody to name as her obvious successor at that point either. So succession was a major problem. Another one of the major problems was Mary Queen of Scots. Now, we'll come back and do some podcasts on this later, but Mary Queen of Scots, when Elizabeth didn't have any children, was her nearest living relative. She was a cousin. And unfortunately for Elizabeth, she happened to be a really strong Catholic. So you can absolutely imagine that the people living in England who were still Catholics, and let's be honest, that was virtually half the country, was still really wanting to follow the Catholic faith, would have much preferred Mary Queen of Scots to be on the throne than Elizabeth I. And Mary Queen of Scots actually did see herself as a possible Queen of England, so that was a major threat. And she became an even bigger threat when she had a marriage that let her have a son called James. So Mary Queen of Scots was now a Catholic heir to the throne with a child, a male heir, ready to take over if anything happened to her. And obviously she then has to come and live under house arrest. She has to flee Scotland, so she lives in England for 19 years under house arrest. I'll do a podcast on that a little bit later, but the fact she actually lives in England makes her more of a threat, and it just makes the Catholic plots even more real against Elizabeth I.